And what do you think it is about society today that both anxiety and depression seem to be running rampant in our kids and teens? I know COVID brings a whole extra layer, but this was an epidemic before COVID even started.
So I think that's a huge point, right? Um, um, Debbie's absolutely right. I mean, our own data goes back to 2005. This was going on. This was starting well before COVID. Now, COVID is serious in different ways. It's definitely exacerbating the stress load on children and teens, although it does it in different ways. One of the mysteries of human development is that the teenage brain is shifting. And really, their best way of managing stress shifts from those interactions, warm interactions with mom and dad, to peers, to their friends. But here we have a situation where, because of social distancing, it's become very difficult for them to engage with friends. Now, we do have some data showing us that social media is pretty good at maintaining contact. The problem is, if you ever watch teens in a group, they do what's called proximal as opposed to distal self-regulation. What that means is they touch each other a lot, and they're innocent, like touching on the shoulder or shared gaze, and so we don't get those effects through social media. So it's great. We're using it as well as we can. I love that Debbie's having a virtual party after this. But for a young adolescent, it's a further aspect of why the stress load is so great. Now, the deeper part of Debbie's question is, why has this been going on? And we can give you, if you go onto our website, we've got a little graphic of the 12 major sources of stress on children and teens today.
Oh,
wow. And so there's two things that are going on here. One is parents really need to spend a little time with us to understand what stress is. The best way of explaining stress is that the theory that I was trained in by Stanley Greenspan starts by looking at the stress on a newborn. And if you think about that for 1 second, how could a newborn have stress? It tells you that scientists don't use the word stress in the way that, say, the media does. The media talks about the stress of, money or the stress of work. But for a scientist, stress is anything that requires us to burn energy. And overstress is when we're burning too much energy. So what we look at when we study the stress load on children and teens is we're looking at the stresses on them in this sense of, they're burning stress without knowing it. Now, can I give you just one quick example?
Yeah, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Is it safe to assume then that the increased rates of anxiety and depression are from increased stress?
I think there's two things that are going on there. It's a good question. The first thing is what you just said. So we have a lot of hidden stresses in our lives. They have a lot of hidden stresses in their lives. So we know their stress load is going up. But there's another point that's huge, as important as that. And that is, when we talk about self-regulation, we're really just talking about how you handle stress. And you can handle stress in a way that's maladaptive or in a way that's actually really good for you. A maladaptive way of handling stress is a method that maybe it gets you over the stress of the moment, but it creates more stress down the road. So, a classic example would be, as an adult, if, I deal with the stress of my job by drinking heavily, then that's a maladaptive way of dealing with my stress. One of the big problems that we're seeing with kids is this explosion of maladaptive ways of dealing with stress. So I'll give you an easy example. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with social media. In fact, we've got lots and lots of data telling us that for certain kids, it's wonderful. It helps, that shy kid begin to interact. The problems are the result of when the kid is using social media as a way of avoiding or suppressing whatever it is that is bothering them a lot. So that's the kid who, let's say gets home from school's had a rough day, goes onto his machine, won't say a word to mom and dad, and stays on it until you finally force him to shut down, refuses to eat, and is in terrible shape when you turn off the machine. So there's the case where he's using the video or whatever, video game, whatever, as a way of avoiding his stress rather than working through it in a healthy and a constructive way.